it's a rain or shine event because the way we've thought it up, the people that were affected most by 9/11 never had a choice of how their day was going to end.
Yeah.
So for us, okay, we got to hike in the rain. Okay, we got to do it.
Yep.
And the response that we get when it's one of those like crazy weather days, it's really, people get what the event is all about. It's about the memorial, and that's what we want to keep everybody focused on. It's really great to see when, okay, you're getting to the summit and there's absolutely no view whatsoever. It's cold, it's raining, and they set up their flags, and usually at that point we have the 12 to 2 window, but we say
be smart, right? Just
be smart. Use your better judgment. If you want to just fly it for like a half hour, that's fine. Turn around, come back. No, we don't want anyone getting hurt during this. But.
Right. And there are times when the wind is 50 miles an hour and gusting to 60, 70, tears the flag apart. So we were talking about Adams a few years ago. I did it with one of my groups, and we literally didn't even set up a flagpole. We just had one section. We attached the flag, and then we moved to the leeward side of the peak because the wind was so rapid. It was so violent that we just literally couldn't fly the flag. It was tearing itself apart.
You didn't want to turn yourself into a kite.
I did not want to turn myself into a kite. That would have been unpleasant.
state of New Hampshire. Welcome to the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast, where we discuss all things related to hiking and search and rescue in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Here are your hosts, Mike and Stump.
You hit record? We're recording?
Of course I hit record.
All right, how many people here from Massachusetts? All right, you're all massholes. What about New Hampshire? All right, what about Connecticut and Rhode Island? Okay, we got somebody from Philly? I thought I saw somebody from Philly. You guys are from Philly? All right, you win the farthest distance. Or anybody from California? All right, we don't like the West Coast anyway. They get all switchbacks. All right, welcome everybody to the podcast. Prepare to be bored for the next 90 minutes. Stump, I meant to ask you this question, and it occurred to me when I was getting dressed today. I was trying to decide whether I'm going to wear shorts or pants, and you don't wear shorts.
Never.
You don't wear. What is that?
It's a search and rescue thing. It's like when you're out there on the trail carrying somebody, you don't want your legs getting dug up and chewed up by our glorious trails up here in the Whites.
Let me ask you this. If you go to the beach, will you wear shorts or do you still wear jeans?
Yeah, polyester, pure polyester long pants at the beach.
You do?
Oh, yeah.
You don't wear shorts at the beach?
And fleece.
No, are you serious?
Yeah, I swear to God.
I don't know. I'm going to have to ask Mr. Stomp about that. But I just find that interesting because I'm in shorts 24/7.
24/7, huh?
Yeah, anyway, so So I think tonight here, so we got our live show here, so hopefully we don't bore the hell out of everybody, but the format is going to be the same as we typically do our regular podcast, except I'm going to throw in a stand-up comedy routine I'm going to attempt here. So bear with me as I go through this, but I did want to start off by thanking Stomp for not taking any search and rescue calls during this and leaving me by myself, because I would never forgive him for this. But
Can you imagine? Well, Mrs. Stomp is here. She could fill in.
That is true. But I
Come on.
Yeah. But I am pissed off because you scheduled this on the night where House of Dragons is playing, so I'm going to miss that. But anyway, welcome to the event, folks. And now that I have you here, I actually have a confession to make. This is not a podcast. This is a chance for me to get everybody involved in my essential oils pyramid scheme. So my mentor is going to be presenting for the next 8 hours to get everybody signed up. So, but no, seriously, we're going to be focusing on hiking here. But our topic is mostly going to be the next hour and a half debating whether or not hammocks or tents are better. Okay.
Sounds tantalizing.
I'm dying here. I'm absolutely dying. I'm definitely not a stand-up comic. Stomp, this is the part where you said, insert Stomp's dad joke here.
I just pulled it off.
Oh, you did? Okay. Anyway, but that's the end of my jokes. But before I get to the show, I did want to welcome everybody and give a special shout out to those of you coming directly from a hike. I've gotten a chance to speak to some of you, and you smell just like the back of Stomp's Tacoma. So thank you for not showering. I appreciate it. But that's it. That's all for my stand-up comedy routine. But I do want to give a shout out to our regular coffee donators. Definitely keep the coffee going, because Stomp is planning a trip to Hawaii this year, so we need all the money that we can get. And then I have to pay for my membership to the Gilmore Girls fan club this year, so we need that. All right. And then the last thing I would say is that if this show ends, please, nobody leave me alone anywhere near Mrs. Stomp. Rumor has it that I've got to watch out for a knife in my back, because she's going to take over my position. So, all right. So I used to work at a comedy club, and I always used to watch these guys do the comedy routines, and they would bomb, and this feels exactly like that. So sorry about that. But anyway, Stomp, so we're supposed to talk about the genesis of the podcast. So for those of you that have never listened to the podcast, and you're just here getting a beer, and you're like, what the hell have we run into?
Yeah.
This is the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast, which is a podcast about hiking and search and rescue in the White Mountains. And we started talking about this 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, long time.
Yeah. And then how did we end up here, Stomp?
Yeah, let me adjust that for you.
All right.
How did we end up here in front of all these great people? Jeez, I don't know, man. The first few shows were pretty rough, but we would hike occasionally and bat around the idea again, and it just never went anywhere. And then I think there was just a lull in our busy lives, and we were like, let's do it. Let's try to make this happen. So you started scripting up the first few scripts, and I made sure I got some of the gear. I've been doing some of this production for quite a while for audio and stuff like that. So it was a good fit, for me. It was like, I can help this out,
Yeah, I think COVID helped, because we were talking about it.
Oh,
we were always so busy with work and everything, and then when COVID happened,
COVID was so great.
It was. And I will say that my family made fun of me when I was like, I'm going to do this podcast, and my family, I'll introduce them in a minute. They're all here. They're going to be hiding in a minute. But they would all make fun of me, and they're like, oh my God, Dad's going through a midlife crisis. He's starting a podcast, and it's not going to go anywhere, and it's going to be horrible. And now I just got to say, this isn't a big crowd, but people are paying attention. So I was right.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's a niche. I mean, clearly this isn't Gillette, but hell, it's a start.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so a little bit.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah, SLASR at Gillette, maybe?
We'll see.
For the 500?
I don't know about that. But I think just to give a little bit of background, we had some notes here about sort of how we make the podcast. So typically, in case you're curious, we typically record on Monday, Tuesday night. We've very rarely ever done a morning podcast. I think we did one episode that was a morning podcast, and it felt really weird. So
super weird.
Yeah, we'll usually do it at night, have a beer. Speaking of which, I don't have a beer here. I had a carry-out stout, but I don't have anything left. Be great to get another one.
Somebody want to set Mike up with a brew?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, thank you, Ian.
Yes. But so we typically record on a Tuesday night. We talk about the Woodpecker Studio. So the Woodpecker Studio is really based on, and Mrs. Stomp talked about this, it's based on the old restaurant that used to be in Thornton. Is it Thornton? Yeah.
Thornton.
And so we named it after that. But Stomp's house is really the real Woodpecker Studio. And then mine's the Woodpecker Studio South, which is my basement, which is my laundry room and my work office. And typically that's how we record.
Yeah. It's an interesting process. Like, he'll send me all the tracks after the fact, and then I'll marry them all together and then add all these drops in segues and this and that. And it's just a lot of fun.
Yep. So we will be opening up Q&A at the end of the show in case you have any additional questions about how we make this show. But moving on, I guess, from the process, Stomp, I guess the one thing I wanted to ask you is, like, do you have any, like, moments that stand out around highlights, worst shows, anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think, the winter shows seem to be a big hit anyway. A lot of listens on that one. And by the way, this is the 100K celebration for downloads, but we're actually at like 110 now, so we're just cruising past it. I think we average like, it's really interesting. Like a couple thousand, 3,000 a month or so. I mean, it's crazy, but it's super cool, and it's all because of you guys listening. It's awesome. But Ty Gagne was a huge episode for me personally. I mean, we put a lot of time into that. That was two episodes to have Ty in and talk about his books and his experiences, and I think that was really cool. Another favorite of mine actually was Colonel Ninnis from Civil Air Patrol. He was funny as hell, right?
Yeah.
And then BB from Solo. Those are my favorites.
Yeah, those are good. And I remember, like, Colonel Ninnis, when I started talking about UFOs, he's just like, what is this guy talking about? So that was probably my worst moment.
Oh, it's so funny. How about you?
I would say, I was thinking about this as I was driving up. I think the one moment, there's one thing that I really regret, and I think it was in like the first or second episode where we did a segment about Franconia Ridge, and I think I talked about Guy Waterman, who is somebody who gave back a lot of like work, and he's really an important person in the history of the White Mountains. And I think I don't think I did him justice when I spoke about him. And instead of focusing on sort of the end of his life, I think that I regret not focusing on everything that he did in his life to give back to the White Mountains community. So I definitely plan on doing a deeper dive on Guy in the future. So I think that's the one thing that I really regret. But as you do these things,
focused in on that.
Exactly. It's not relevant really when you look at the totality of his life. So I'd say that's probably
prolific.
the biggest. Yeah, that's
he was
probably
like
the
a
biggest.
Joe Dodge.
Yeah, exactly. So
absolutely.
Anyway, but highlights, you had Ty coming on the show was great. And I think the dog rescue episodes for me were always the funnest and most interesting because it's a challenge. Like I'm always interested in talking to people that have been involved in rescues, but it's really a delicate situation because you don't want to be like an ambulance chaser, and you don't want to, I don't want to bother people that have been involved in rescues unless they voluntarily are interested in talking about it. But with dogs, like, they can't talk, so we can get all the information we want about dogs. So I've always been fascinated by that.
Absolutely. And one person couldn't make it tonight. It's Paul, the voiceover guy. He's been a huge part of the show, I think. Just in general, I think it gives it character and branding and whatnot. And I don't know if anybody's researched his work, but he is one of the most talented voiceover actors out there. And he's on probably 90% of some of the commercials you've seen and listened to. But he has a message, so I'm just going to play it quick.
Hey, welcome to the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast 100,000 download celebration here at Reklis Brewing. I wish I could join all of you, but I'm currently on assignment in an undisclosed location. To find out where, tune in next time on Undisclosed Locations. Seriously, it has been an absolute pleasure to work with Mike and Stomp on their new adventure, and I hope that my humble contribution has given you, the listeners, an enjoyable experience. And just between you and me, if you want more of that enjoyable experience, my number is 213...
What? So they can talk to me on the phone? No?
All right. On behalf of Mike and Stomp, I'd like to thank you for listening to this dumb podcast. I didn't write this. Stomp wrote that. It's not a dumb podcast. It is an absolutely fantastic podcast. I listen to it. In fact, I just caught the latest show with Stomp and Mrs. Stomp. All I have to say, Mike, watch out. Now, get out there and crush some super mega peaks. And have a good time. Bye.
Yahoo.
How much did that cost?
Oh, he's so generous too. He's been a good buddy of mine for ages, and I'm just blessed to know him.
I've asked you this before, but like that guy, like is he like super tall? Like he speaks very tall. I've never met him.
No, he's sort of short like you.
He is, but he's got that voice. How do I get that voice?
No, he is. He's sort of stocky.
Oh, I'm sure he'll appreciate that. All right, so this is the part of the show where we're giving shout outs. So Nicole from the Taylor James Steves Foundation, are you here? Nicole, hi Nicole. All right, so we had Brittany on from the foundation earlier, so they're doing a fundraiser this month. So we wanted to give the fundraiser for Taylor James Steves Foundation one more shout out. If anybody's doing any hiking this month and you want to participate in the fundraiser, go ahead and sign up. We'll have it in the show notes, and they're raising funds for people that have cancer that need support through their cancer treatment. So great foundation, and I wanted to give you a shout out. So welcome, Nicole. And next, I wanted to say hi to Martin Pizzani.
Pizzani.
Yeah, you do it. Hey, Martin.
It's a Pizzani.
Yeah. So Martin's been on the show a couple times. So we're going to be doing a Q&A later in the show. So the first three people that are brave enough to come in and come up and ask questions, we'll give you one of Martin's books. And these are signed, right, Martin? Yep, they are signed. All right. And then I've got here, I want to welcome my family. So I've got my wife, Kristen. Say hello, Kristen. And then I've got my brother and sister-in-law over here, Matt and Marissa. And then I've got my daughter, Caroline. Her trail name is 19. Put your two hands, 19. Okay?
She is.
And then her boyfriend is here. We call him, his trail name is Camel. So Camel, we took him for his first hike. Camel has made the mistake of dating a girl that has like the hiking family, and he's also going to end up getting like stuck on like the 5K on Thanksgiving morning. Like we're that family. So welcome to the family, Camel.
And my folks are over here in table number 1. This is my beautiful wife, Mrs. Stomp, and my folks, Ivan and Brenda. They're currently filming this, so if we're motivated enough, we might marry the audio to this and put it up on YouTube. Who knows?
Yeah, and then I think the next intro or welcome that we wanted to give is to our friend Mark here, Nobby Hikes. He's been on the show a couple of times. Head injury guy.
Stand up, Mark. Come on.
So
he's right up here in the front, everybody.
Yeah. So he just finished his 4,000 footers today.
Yeah.
And like anybody who is a well-planned list hiker, he finished on East Osceola today, which is perfect. The best peak you can finish on. Good planning, Mark. So, and then I also want to, if you take a look over here, Shandy is a super fan of ours. She's sitting down. Say hello. And then Shandy just told me before the show started, her dog, the dog's name is Sage, right? Sage just finished her 4,000 footers today on Cannon Mountain. So, congratulations.
Super cool.
Yes, exactly. And me and Shandy were talking about my college shirts, Kristen. She likes them, so we're good.
I know a lot of you guys have been following the exploits of Larson and Steve Mason and all these guys, but Larson and Sarita just wanted to give a special hi. They couldn't make it tonight, but they're out there crushing peaks as usual.
All right, and then I think here, the next part of the show, we've got our pop culture discussion here. So I got some feedback on, I had recommended this show called Paper Girls, which is on Amazon. Have you watched it? Yeah. So Mrs. Stomp says I like chick shows, but I really like this, and it ties into something. I think we're going to be talking to Steve from Reklis later on, and I'll bring it up here. But it's like a Gen X kids growing up show, so that's what resonated to me. It's not really the girl stuff.
But we got a couple of shout outs from people that have watched Paper Girls. So definitely, if you haven't checked it out, Amazon Prime, it's a great show. And then Stomp, I just wanted to get your reaction on House of Dragons and the Rings of Power shows that have been on.
Oh my goodness, what a contrast, right? I think I'd probably leave it at that. Initially, I mean, we talked about this a little bit, but the House of Dragons is really starting to stick with us for sure. Second episode, third episode? It was fantastic. Fantastic. So I think it is, we're missing it, right? I mean, we can put a TV up behind us and watch it as we go. But so far so good. I was a little nervous, but I think they're pulling it off. And honestly, I gave that Lord of the Rings prequel, correct? Yeah, prequel, a try, but I just couldn't do it. Sorry. I'm one of those snobby Tolkien fans, so couldn't do it.
I'm sticking it out with the Rings of Power, just
really?
because the cinematography is amazing on it.
Sure.
And I'm hoping that they tighten up the politics a little bit so I can understand what's going on. But I think House of Dragons is a little bit easier because I've read Fire and Blood and I kind of know what's coming a little bit.
Sure.
But I'm interested in people that haven't read Fire and Blood. They're going to be like very disappointed, I think.
So give us a subtle spoiler. Come on.
I would say a subtle spoiler to me is that the Targaryens, this won't give anything away, but it's a subtle spoiler. The Targaryens' intermarriage between family plays a significant part in what eventually becomes a real shit show of a civil war. So it'll look beep. Sugar show. Sorry, there's young children here. Sorry. All right. So then the next thing I have on my list here is that we're all going to get drunk tonight, but we do want to remind people that Sober October is approaching.
Oh yeah.
Are you doing it?
I'm doing it. Yeah. You know why? Because my wife has a new fascination with this guy named Tom Cruise. And when I do the DJ stuff, I'm getting the man boob thing bouncing. That's just not cool. So I'm gonna try to sober up and lose some weight and get chiseled, just like Mr. Cruise. How about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna do the same.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we're in. Anybody else? Anybody else want to look like Tommy?
Yeah,
no?
yeah. Let's promote sober lifestyle at a brewery. That's going to go over well. Sorry about that. I will. I'm going to load up on beer for November, though, here, before I leave. All right. So the next thing here, we want to give a shout-out to the Lakes Region Search and Rescue.
Well, it's a benefit. It's called the Rescue Me 5K.
Correct.
And I think I have a link for it, but let me just open it up here. Could you do it, actually?
You have a touchscreen computer there?
Yeah.
This is fancy.
This is fancy stuff.
All right, yeah. So this, Lakes Region is doing a fundraiser on Saturday, November 12th.
Oh, there it is.
10 a.m. It's called the Rescue Me 5K. So, Camel, get ready. Me and you are doing the 5K together.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, this is going to be in Lincoln, New Hampshire. So if you're interested, we'll include this in the show notes and get out there. Even if you're not going to run, you can walk it. And it's a fundraiser to support the Lakes Region Search and Rescue.
Awesome. And for coffee donations, I mean, again, thank you everybody for donating intermittently for us. It pays the web hosting and just all the nitty-gritty stuff that we have to deal with. I mean, when we have a guest, it costs. Everything costs. There's nothing free. So this week we had some donations actually on the coffee platform. Mary B donated 5, and let me see, Snack Attack with Nalgene Cheez-Its. So apparently she had a snack attack with, so what she does is she puts Cheez-Its in a Nalgene and has them just in case. Sarah donated 3. Apparently she did a Pemi Loop in 5 days and complimented Mr. Mike over here on your Pemi information. That was a great episode, actually.
Yeah, I love the Pemi Loop, but I don't know if I'd have to think through. 5 days would be a little bit too long for me, but you could do an extended, though. Like, what I would do with 5 days is just extend it out and probably, I would think I would probably go over to North Twin, come down and, add Hale and Zealand to that, and maybe do a night that way, and then, I don't know, maybe break up.
5 days, wow.
Yeah, but it's great. I mean, there's plenty to explore out there, for sure.
Joe B donated a coffee, and the Tasha episode he references and writes, best intro yet. I'm trying to remember what that was. That was
the Gilmore Girls.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah. Wendy A. Donated a coffee. Thanks for the Paper Girl heads up. And number one fan, Shandy, I suppose, right over there. Shandy, thank you very much. You donated as well. And so super cool, everybody. Really appreciate it. And I've got a little cut here for Reklis.
Thank you to our sponsor, Reklis Brewing, where you'll enjoy the best food, craft beer, and fun just 15 minutes from Franconia Notch, many 4,000 footers, and less than 10 minutes from the Five Corners. Visit them online at reklisbrewing.com. REKLIS brewing.com.
And apparently, people are showing up at Spinners down in Andover. So whoever that is, if you've made the trip down there and said hi, that's fantastic. They're off at Dascombe Road, off of 93. Dolls and Pops. I said it correctly for once. You can get stickers and stuff down there. And by the way, if anybody needs a chair, just ask the staff at Reklis, and they'll set you up with a stool. And we have stickers over here, and we have stickers over here at table number 1, and EMS. Actually, I want to thank EMS because they've been fantastic. The Northeast go-to since, 1960s? Yeah, the 60s, somewhere around the 69, apparently. Yes. But check them out, and yeah.
There's so many buttons on that thing. I just want to start fiddling with it. That thing's interesting. So Stomp handles all that stuff. I just do the website. Anyway, but welcome to episode 74 of the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast. It's our very first live show, so I'm a little nervous, but bear with us so that we work through this new experience. But Stomp is on the tech, so hopefully we'll be okay. You hit record, right?
Oh, shit!
Yeah,
no, I'm just
whatever.
kidding.
So this week we are excited to be joined by our host. I think Ian and Marlena are going to be joining us at some point here. So hopefully somebody told them.
We'll give them a shot.
Okay, definitely. And then later in the show we will be hoping to be joined by, I think, Jim from Flags on the 48. Jim, are you here? Okay. We'll
Somebody may be here from Flags. We'll see what happens. The plan is potentially to give an update on the day and see if they can confirm how many peaks were done and this and that, but we'll keep you posted. We're going to make some of this up on the fly.
All right. And then we'll also get a visit from Steve from Reklis. He's got a new project that he's going to be working on that we want to talk about. We're going to have Q&A. We're going to talk about new satellite cell phone technology. We're going to do a little segment on that. The iPhone is getting an upgrade that may have an impact on search and rescue. So, and then we'll get to search and rescue news if we have time. So we're doing it live from Rek Lis Brewing. I'm Mike.
And I'm Stomp. Let's get started.
Let's get started. Okay. What are you drinking?
Oh, Reklis?
I know that, but what are you drinking?
This is the lager that's on tap. It's delicious.
Lager.
I believe that they have carry-out stout on tap tonight, which is great. Steve's going to come up in a minute and fill us in. What you got cooking?
I have the carry-out, and I'm on number 2, so I'm already getting drunk.
Carry-out's awesome. Just to let everybody know, Reklis donates a percentage of the pints of the carry-out stout to Pemi Search and Rescue, which is based out of this side of the notch, and so that's super cool. It's a nice donation for the team.
I might need a rescue after 2.
Is Steve in the house? You want to come up, brother, and say hi? All right.
Is he here?
Yeah, he's right there.
Oh, there he is. Nice to meet you.
All right, I think we're good. Say hi.
Hello. Thank you for coming.
All right. So this
Look at
is
this bounty
Steve.
of stickers.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
yeah. Just come up
yeah.
if you want a sticker. Just come up during the show. It's no big deal. So, Steve, what's the latest and greatest in the brewing plans for Reklis right
Well,
now?
first of all, who are you? You're just some random dude that just walked in
Hey,
off the
Steve
street.
from Reklis.
I'm Steven. I'm a brewer here at Reklis, and
Yeah.
I'm on a local search and rescue team. Friends with these guys, and occasional pop in, talk about beer on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's cooking, bro?
Well, it's Oktoberfest season, so I believe what you're drinking is our fest beer
Okay.
lager. We've got 2 more seasonal Oktoberfest beers coming out. We're going to have the Marzen coming out, which is a beer that we brewed in March, and we've had it aging on steel until now. And then we're going to have a Helles lager, really light, really pale, and that's going to be coming out, I think, at the end of this week.
What's on steel mean?
Just like in a steel keg,
Oh, steel.
rather than like aging it in a barrel or something like that.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
We have a lot more steel kegs rather than barrels that we can age things in.
So, what are you doing with pumpkins?
I was just going to ask that.
We have 2 pumpkin beers coming out this year. The first one is the same beer that we've had the past couple of years. We call it Jack O'Roe. I believe it's named after a Grateful Dead song, I think, or something like that. I'm sorry, I'm not the deadhead around here. Ian and Kyle, the other 2 brewers, are fans, and I think that's where that name came from. So that beer is brewed with pumpkins. We're also doing a roasted pumpkin beer, so hopefully a little bit of char flavor in that one, a different, so maybe hopefully a little less sweet, a little more savory, a little smoky. So we're going to have 2 pumpkin beers coming out, as well as 2 more Oktoberfest beers. I'm actually really excited for beer in the next month here at Reklis.
How much
It's a
lead
sweet
time
lineup.
does it take to actually make beer?
Well, they say like grain to glass is kind of so for a lager like the beer that Stomp's drinking now, that's closer to 4 weeks at the minimum, as much as 6 weeks. But like an ale that you and I are drinking is like 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then if you or one of the other brewers wants to pitch a completely new idea that you haven't done before, what's the process for that?
Well, we just kind of all sit down and have meetings, or even during the work week, we're all always talking, we're all pitching ideas. And Ian, who's one of the owners and is our head brewer, he says yes to almost everything. So if we have a good idea and if it's well researched, Ian's really easy about saying yes and giving us a lot of leeway. And I think that's what one of the things that makes Reklis great, because we have several beers that you can come every time and we're going to have it and they're going to be great every time, but we're also going to have a pretty big list of stuff that is new, something a little more experimental. That's what keeps us interested in making beer, and it keeps guests interested in coming back and drinking beer more and more.
Got it. Do you guys ever like blow up a batch and you're just like, you know what, this isn't working? Like got to toss it, or
We haven't had to dump a batch yet. I mean, certainly it happens where a batch will be, we'll say, oh man, this wasn't quite as good as last time, and we'll all sit down, we'll look at our notes, we'll figure out, okay, what can we do to make this better? And it's always constant improvement, always just trying to improve, always just taking notes, seeing what we can learn better each time. So
So awesome.
yeah, if we make a mistake, it's just one that we can learn from.
awesome. And then do you have a new project? You got a podcast going on? What's going on? I see in the notes here. Are you going to compete with us?
No, I don't think so, not at all.
You'd have to sign up for our podcast network.
I don't think if you had a podcast network, it'd be really cool, by the way.
Yeah, we'll work on that. Kristen, let's get a loan.
Yeah.
We'll start one.
I don't think there's a whole lot of overlap in what we're doing, but I have a couple of friends. They're here with us tonight. My buddy David and my buddy Jeremy, and for the past handful of years, Dungeons and Dragons D&D is a hobby that I've always kind of wanted to get into, but I've always been a little too nervous to jump in and play pretend and make silly voices with other people. So, have a couple beers, and then my buddy David finally convinces us to sit down. We've been playing it for a little while now, and he's always kind of wanted to record our sessions because we have fun doing it.
Yeah.
So now it's even more nerve-wracking. We decided to do just that. So we're recording our weekly game sessions, and we're going to start to publish them.
Really?
So you must have felt some of the pressure that he and I felt once you lock into a podcast. It's like, oh, I got to do this every week. Wait a minute.
Well, I have to be perfectly honest. I'm right now I have the smallest workload of the three of us. David's our dungeon master, so he does most of the planning throughout the week, and Jeremy's doing all our editing and sound manipulation. So he's busy with it throughout the week.
Yeah.
I'll be picking up slack wherever I can, so I know that my workload will come. But right now, I'm just kind of showing up every week and trying to have fun and play games. So my role is very easy right now, but
Yeah.
I feel for those guys, and they're both nervous as well.
Were you ever into Dungeons and Dragons, or?
I was, yeah. Well,
Really?
so not. I mean, a little bit. Like we had a period when I was. So I grew up in the '80s, early '80s. So I had my buddy Lumpy. Remember Lumpy? So I had my friend Lumpy, and we would like, Stranger Things, like the Hellfire Club. Like literally, that was like it was in my buddy Lumpy's basement, and we would like play. I think it was Advanced D&D.
Advanced D&D.
But I only did it for like a year or so, and it was like. I don't know. I mean, I'm 50, so it was like a very interesting time to grow up because I think and it's interesting to see how Dungeons and Dragons has, and a lot of the stuff that we talk about in pop culture, the fantasy writing and all that stuff has become much more mainstream. Mm-hmm. But I remember like we would do D&D, and it was a bunch of like loser guys. We had no game with girls. We would just go over to Lumpy's house after school and play Advanced D&D, I think it was. It was an interesting time because in the 80s, like there was a societal change where a lot of parents were getting divorced. So there was a lot of guys that were like home by themselves, and then either your parents were getting divorced and you were kind of home by yourself, or your mother was going to work. So there was a lot of like societal change, and I think my generation, we needed an escape. Like we didn't have the internet, so you do like Dungeons and Dragons. I used to read fantasy books a lot. And I think like I have like a grand unifying theory on this stuff, I guess. But I think a lot of the people that were in my generation got into fantasy and all of this stuff around, like I read Terry Brooks, Tolkien, all this stuff. And I think we got into it, and it somehow became mainstream when the internet happened. And everyone was like, I'm into this too. And now I think our kids, we've introduced it to our kids, so it's much more normalized. Mm-hmm. And it kind of sucks, like it used to be a niche thing, but now the normies all know about all this stuff. But I definitely, it's an interesting area, and I think that people are so online all the time that it's good to have a creative outlet like this. So I'll listen to it. It'd be interesting.
It's a huge community now. Yeah, like you said, it used to be really, really niche, but yeah, there's no corner of the internet or the world, whatever. There's always somebody in some group who's playing D&D. I was talking to Stomp the other day, and I commented on how much enjoyment I got out of when you guys talk about Lord of the Rings or something like that. And I kind of gave you a label, Mike. I said you were like a sleeper nerd.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you're obviously a successful guy. You got a family, you got hobbies, and so maybe not like somebody you'd expect to be like, oh yeah, actually, as far as J.R.R. Tolkien's theory on this goes.
Oh, my wife is just laughing right now.
It was great to see you pull that knowledge out. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I think like I definitely remember those days back in Lumpy's house, and like we just like we're trying to find ourselves, and we just were we'd smoke cigarettes. It was literally like when Stranger Things comes out, like that view of the basement where they're all sitting around the basement and they're such nerds and losers. Like that was like Lumpy's basement, and it's amazing that they. Now it's mainstream.
Mm-hmm. Well, guys like you paved the way for guys like me, so thank you for bringing it to the mainstream.
Yes.
Well, I have a promo for it. You want me to blast this promo for you guys, or what?
Okay.
All right, here we go. Ready?
Welcome to Fantasy Pants, an actual play RPG podcast. The network won't like me saying this, but damn it, the Tythos tragedy was the result of nothing natural. It was an act of deliberate terrorism. We don't know anything except that we are hurt and we are scared. But as always, I choose to believe in the power of our luminaries. I will put my faith in the best of all worlds when we must face the storm again. What are you doing here?
I just want to be like you.
Cherry delights, form ranks.
Zebulon Black.
The name's Jules LaRoche. Pleased to meet ya.
Jules, can this thing be stabbed?
We're about to find out.
Ah, hell.
I can search. I can rescue.
Come at me.
I always got you guys.
Stop! Hey! Stop! Roll for initiative. 5% chance.
Permanent death.
We will lose a character before we even start the campaign.
First roll of the
Nice.
first session. Nat 20.
And I don't know if anyone's gonna hear you unzipping your pants, so please don't.
I have like Fisher Price dice.
And we'll call it there.
It was a little extra, but it was really cool.
Nice. It sounds cool.
That was terrifying.
Wish you. Yeah, how's it sound like? How did you feel when you hear yourself like through speakers like that?
Well, like I said, that I was even nervous to sit down and play a couple of years ago just with my friends, So now to do this is a whole nother level of scary.
Yeah. So whose voices are those?
So back there in the, I guess it used to be green Reklis shirt. It's my buddy David. He's our DM.
Right on.
And then
Hey,
the
Dave.
very, very, very tall dude next to him with the glasses is Jeremy.
Awesome. Gotcha.
So that's our crew.
Awesome.
Yep.
Well, I wish you guys the best. If you want to come on and plug it, let us know.
Sweet.
Thank you for the update. I think we are moving on. We just got a special guest here tonight, actually. Dolls and Pops just showed up in the red spinner shirts up front here. I can't believe they came all the way up from Mass, which is so far away. It's so good to see you guys. So glad you made it, for sure.
I'm coming down to get pizza. I'll be there. I swear.
What?
I did too.
So for the audience listening, Spinner's Pizza is here, so we'll be getting some food down there soon. But Stomp, recent hikes.
Recent hikes. Well, this morning I did Welch and Dickey really quick because I had to get all this out of my head. It's sort of stressful pulling something like this off, and all the unknowns, like where are we going to set up? Is it going to work? And last night, believe it or not, this mixer was starting to glitch on me. Like, are you kidding me? So I was up until about 11, trying to figure out what was going on, but it's working fine, thank God. So Mr. Stomp and I did the Harvest Moon hike. We live sort of close nearby Welch Dickey, so it's really easy for us to get out there. And at first we thought it was going to be another one of those, babe, where's the moon? Because it was supposed to come up at, I forget the exact time, 8-ish or so. We were there waiting, nothing. No clouds anywhere, though. And we waited for at least 40 minutes thinking, where the hell did the moon go? And finally, it just all of a sudden just popped up right over Sandwich Dome. An orange harvest moon. It was absolutely beautiful. So that was a really nice time. It's always great getting out for meteors and moon events and things like that if you can. So
Yeah.
Did we ever cover that topic? Like where to go for, say, meteors and
Anywhere dark.
Well, I was surprised that it was dark enough, but yeah. So, how about you?
Yeah, I've seen some good moon risings in Newburyport when we were walking, but I did a hike last weekend. I did. My friend Rob, I've got like I talk about them on the show every once in a while. Like I have my soccer dad buddies from my Amesbury where I live. So Rob is one of my friends. So I took him hiking. He wanted to hike Chicora. So I was like, well, we'll go up Carter Ledge because that's one of my favorite trails in the White. So we hiked up, we left from Piper Trail and we went up to Carter Ledge. Yeah. And then you have, I don't know if you've hiked it or not, but there's like these open ledges like below, there's like a sub peak where you can see out to like Mount Washington and it's awesome views out to Western Maine. And then we made it up to Middle Sister, I think, that has that foundation there. And we left early. I think we got on trail at like 7:15, which is a good time to go. Piper Trailhead on a Saturday or Sunday was like only like 5 or 6 cars. And when we got back, it was full. But we made it over to Middle Sister and then hiked to Chicora. And we were like the first ones on the peak. So if you get to Chicora early, it's interesting on a weekend. Like we were hanging out on the peak for maybe 15 minutes or so. And I was looking at there's carvings there. So it's like 1906, 1950 or whatever. So it's cool. And my friend Rob was just chilling out. And then we like looked over towards like where Piper Trail connects to above tree line. And it was literally like I think it was a Saturday morning. It was like The Walking Dead coming towards us if you've been on there. It was like 50 people on their way. So I was like, we got to get out of here. So we left. and just went down Piper Trail. So it was a nice hike. So it was a good intro for him.
Yeah.
He had gone. I've taken him to Monadnock, and I've taken him to Table Mountain. So this was the hardest hike for him. But he's hooked. So I got another one converted.
Nice.
Which is good, and that's a great hike. If you haven't done Carter Ledge, highly recommend it.
Huh. That's super cool.
Yeah.
Let's see. I have some notable hikes here. So notable listener hike of the week. So all you have to do is tag SLASR on your adventure to be considered for SLASR's hike of the week. No guarantees you'll be plugged on the show, but sometimes we get overwhelmed with this stuff. But we have Steve Summits. Oh, by the way, if you're here, give us a shout. So Steve Summits did a Northern Prezi. Meg Life Wonderful hit Georgiana Falls, and we had a conversation behind the scenes about Georgiana versus Harvard Falls. Which one is the highest one? Does anybody know? I forget. Is Harvard the top one with the bench? I don't know. Oh, well. We'll figure it out. Jakester 2 did North and South Doublehead. Don't forget about the cabin on Doublehead.
I put that note in there. So if anybody has ever been on Doublehead, there is a cabin up there on South Doublehead, I think. North Doublehead, sorry. And you can actually book that online. So just Google like Forest Service, South Doublehead, or North Doublehead, you said?
I believe.
North, yeah. And
sure.
you can book that. So it's a great area.
Okay. Salmon 7 did Caps Ridge. So super cool. So those are your notable hikes. I don't think we'll take a vote on which one's the coolest tonight, but
okay, topic 1. Let's go.
Topic 1.
Yep.
SLASR's hiking topic of the week.
So Stomp, Apple adds emergency satellite capabilities to their iPhone 14 model. So coming out in November, I think you get the iPhone 14, and they've got a new operating system.
Okay.
And the reason why this is notable for all of us here is that it is now going to have satellite capability, which will be very interesting when it comes to hiking, because the feature is going to be called Emergency SOS, and they're partnering with the Global Star Satellite Network.
Okay.
And my understanding of this technology is that you're going to be able to basically send text messages through your Apple iPhone, even if you don't have cell connectivity, and it's going to connect to the Global Star satellite on your iPhone, provided you have an iPhone 14. I think there's new antenna technology in there, and then you have to make sure that you're upgraded to the iOS 16 version.
This is all babble for me.
This is what.
Android guy.
Remember, I talked about how I got Starlink for my father-in-law up in Maine. So there's a ton of dead spots in the White Mountains right now, and satellite technology is growing so rapidly that we're quickly moving to a world where connectivity in the mountains is going to be a non-issue. So everyone's going to be connected, whether it's through cell connection or it's going to be through the satellite technology. So you got Global Star, you've got Starlink, which is the Elon Musk company. They're partnering with T-Mobile to basically set up phones that are going to be connected to satellite. So you're going to basically have a situation where you've got Wi-Fi connectivity, cell tower connectivity, and satellite connectivity.
Wow.
So for me, I see this specifically for search and rescue. I think what's going to be interesting is that probably within the next 2 years or so, we're going to be living in a world where the idea that like, oh, I couldn't call for a rescue because I had no connectivity is not going to be a thing, which opens up a whole sort of different level of protocol, I would think, for fish and game services as well as search and rescue volunteers.
Possibly.
Yeah, which I think is pretty interesting. So I wanted to just sort of call this out. And recently there's been 2 media notifications. One is the Apple announcement, and then the other is the T-Mobile has partnered with Elon Musk. So I'll include those in the show notes.
Okay.
But my thought on this was I'd be interested to hear you and Steve's perspective on this, because I think we're going to be moving into a world where pretty quickly the excuse of like I couldn't call anybody is going to go away. There is some limitations. I said if you're in thick like canopy, like it may not go through as quickly, but they said it will go through eventually. So my question to both of you, or the thing that I'm curious about, is when search and rescue situations happen, and everybody has connectivity, are we going to be dealing with a world where people are going to pull the trigger too quickly and call for rescue? And then B, are we ever going to live in a world, or are we going to see some scenarios where people may delay their decision to call for a rescue? Situations happen where things go very badly and they could have called sooner and they chose not to. You know, what do you see as the issues there, Steve?
I would be surprised if anybody was, if you're really in trouble, I think you know it, and I think you're going to make a call. I don't know the numbers. You guys would probably know them better than I do, but we keep hearing from Fish and Game that every year they're having more and more what they're calling walkout calls, where somebody will call and they'll say, "Oh, I'm lost," or whatever.
Yeah.
And because the technology on the phones is getting so much better, Fish and Game can explain, okay, here's what you have to do, go into your settings, and they'll teach you how to pull up your coordinates.
Yeah.
They'll pull you up on a map, and he'll say, turn left and walk 200 feet, and the trail's there.
Yeah.
And they can get people out of the woods without ever having to activate, either a conservation officer or a search and rescue team. So, I mean, I personally go into the woods to disconnect. I'll put my phone in airplane mode, but it's hard to really argue against more connectivity in the wilderness. I think it can really only be positive.
Yeah, I think the service around here is phenomenal for the most part. I mean, I think there are very few dead spots in the whites now, so I don't know how much more this would bump up calls. I could foresee somebody in a dead spot trying to make a call for help, but they have to just self-ambulate or get themselves down. Maybe there are some that are getting missed, but for the most part, I think it's covered. So I think your next topic about this is risk. Like, will it increase risk and whatnot? So who knows?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting couple of years. The other thing
sure.
I think about is like the impact on Garmin. Like there's a lot of their products and services. I do think that they sort of win out on their
durability.
Durability as well as the interfaces that people are comfortable with.
Yeah.
But I do wonder at a certain point, like, what's the necessary? Is an InReach 2 necessary if you've got it on your iPhone?
Right.
That's the other thing too. People
why pay
communicating.
$400 for a Garmin when you can download Gaia for $20-something bucks?
Yeah. The cold weather is another big problem with phones.
Yeah.
I guess it could give people a sense of security that is not there with the cell phones.
Yeah, give somebody just that extra excuse to push their boundaries a little bit further.
Yeah, I'm going out minus 20 with my cell phone because I'm connected. No,
because I
that's
don't
not
know
gonna
what
work.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the one thing that Garmin has above the cell phone is that they've got much more durability in those cold weather conditions. But I do think if I were Garmin and I'm reading the news and the way that technology is developing around this satellite technology, I would be nervous right now.
Yeah, I'm getting scared, yeah.
All right. So anything else on this topic, Stomp?
I don't think so. Yeah.
All right. So I think next up we had, is Ian and Marlena here from Reklis?
Oh, yeah.
I see Ian way in the back.
All right. Ian's going to come on up here, I think. Can we get him up here?
I'll go get him if he's not. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to just take a minute here. If anybody is looking for stickers, by the way, my daughter right over here, raise them up. If you don't feel like coming right up here, you can go grab stickers from her.
Yeah. They're all over the place at this point.
It's time for SLASR's Guest of the Week. Very cool. Very cool. Very, 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 very cool.
I'm gonna. Okay. We'll catch up afterwards.
All right. So our next guest is here. Are we waiting for another?
Yes, I think so. If Philip is out here, maybe you can go take over from Marlena in the food truck for a few minutes. My lovely lady love. Yeah, so Marlena's been cooking your food tonight.
Oh, really?
She's the best.
So this is quite the place, huh? The Pint House.
Thank you. Yeah.
When did this pop up?
We opened this in July after about 4 months of blood, sweat, and tears, literally.
I can imagine.
Yeah, so it was a yoga studio,
Yeah.
and we have rectified it.
Okay. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
No, Mar. Yeah, she's going to be busy out there, I think.
Yeah, that's fine.
Ladies and gentlemen, Steven Rodriguez, the most humble person you'll ever meet.
Exactly.
I'm not as pretty as Marlena, but I'll take her place for a little while. All right.
It depends who you ask, don't you think?
So, Ian, I was curious. Can you just give a quick rundown on the origin story for Reklis?
It's a fun one.
Yeah.
And it goes back about 6 years. Actually, it goes back about 30 years, but we'll start 6 years ago. I was brewing beer out of a shed in my backyard that I built, a tiny little shed. I met my lovely lady love, Marlena, on the food truck, and she's like, "Why aren't you selling this stuff?" And short story long, we started selling it. And we started doing it out of our shed in our backyard. And we did it for a year there. That's where we met Steven. And it was absolutely brilliant. And people seemed to like it, which blew my mind. So the neighbors started getting a little upset with us, except for Andy and Sandy. They were right there with us, but they didn't. As long as they had beer, they're okay. But we had a bunch of other neighbors who weren't so happy with us. So we had to move the business onto Main Street. Thankfully, we found this building. Well, we found the building out front that was much, much different than it is now. It was just a tiny little 1,500 square foot building. That's when Steven came on, long before he brewed beer. And between he and I and Marlena and a bunch of help from friends, we remodeled it entirely. We took it from what it was, which was an old fish market, an old restaurant, a farm stand at one point, and we turned it into what it is now. And the building, Marlena designs everything, and she does such a great job. She's, as you can see, she's designed this building as well.
Wow.
And they just seem to wrap their arms around you when you come in, hug you and squeeze you and say, "Drink beer."
Yeah, no question.
She's not coming? Yeah, that's okay.
It's all good. You're doing a good job so
Thank
far.
you. You would like her much better than me, just so you know.
And then so right now you obviously have the on-site brewery, but you also distribute, but it's in New Hampshire only right now?
New Hampshire only. We have a ridiculously small brewery for what we're doing. We have a 5-barrel brewery, which is 150 gallons at a time. And we brew an average of 4 times a week, I would say. So we're using all of that beer here, and we are also distributing a fair amount of it to about 30 different accounts throughout New Hampshire.
Okay, so even if you wanted to expand significantly, like get outside the state or something like that, like capacity is a challenge.
We can't do that here. We are looking at possibly having a production brewery offsite some point soon.
Okay. What I'm curious about this. The beer industry, I was thinking about this, is like one of the few industries that we've seen over the last 20 years or so that hasn't consolidated. It's actually the industry seems to have grown, but through fragmentation, which is different than almost every other industry. And why do you think that is?
There's so much good beer out there. It's what it comes down to and there's so many good brewers now. There's everywhere you go, there's great beer, and there's such a wide variety of beer that it just hasn't happened yet. I think it will happen at some point soon. We'll see consolidation, but at this point, what people really like is a brewery in their own town, and that's what we are. We're Bethlehem's Brewery, and we're also here for the outdoor recreational community, and we've loved it so far. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, can you talk about that a little bit? Are you a hiker? What is your background?
Everything, outdoor, everything. Mostly mountain biking, backcountry skiing.
Okay.
A lot of hiking, and Marlena and I both, physical activity combines perfectly with a pint of beer. And that's why we're here. It just seems to go so well. And here we are in beautiful Bethlehem, New Hampshire. We're 1,600 feet up right here. We're 10 miles from the most beautiful mountains this side of the country.
Oh, sure.
And we love the vertical, the gravity. Keep it coming.
It's awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about, we were going to do a history segment on Bethlehem, but tell us just a little bit about the town and what you guys are involved with community-wise. I know you've got the Gare Library happening and Agassiz. I mean, just give us a little primer.
Well, I moved to Bethlehem in 2004. At the time, it was just a sleepy little town. And since I would say about 6 years ago, it started to wake up again.
Yeah.
And there's so much potential here. So we've been working closely with BTA, Bethlehem Trails Association, to build a mountain bike trail network here in town.
Yeah.
We've got about 12 miles of really awesome trails now, and it's so great to see cars with mountain bikes out in the parking lot. Makes us very happy. When it comes to other things like hiking or skiing, any chance we get, we help support those activities. And again, people are just starting to discover what northern New Hampshire has to offer. I know they've been doing up here for years and years, but it's just starting to wake up, I think.
Yeah. And for the listeners, northern New Hampshire would be what?
I would say
North
above
of
the notch.
Above the notch. So for people listening, you have Franconia Notch. Below that, you have Lincoln, which is a huge hotspot. You know, they've got their activities. They've got the are you going to wear your kilt in a couple of weeks?
And throw the telephone pole?
Throw the telephone
You have to. You have to. If you've got it, you have to.
Yeah.
I don't think
no underwear allowed.
But yeah, you're right. North of the Notch is waking up. And one question everybody asks us this: tell us about the Five Corners.
The Five Corners, hiking Five Corners.
The spot down at the end of Trudeau Road, where you can park for the BTA trails and stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
it is right down the road, like five.
Yeah, exactly. So. I think it might be more of a local term.
Yeah,
you know, it started with the Four Corners in Twin Mountain. Now everybody knows the Four Corners, and then I started hearing the Five Corners more and more often.
Yeah,
and so when you were asking about, hey, you know, what do you guys want me to say when we plug Reklis? I was like, between Garfield and Galehead being right there, and also tying in the BTA mountain bike trails. There's a spot there where you can park, and I just thought that let's bring some attention to the White Corners. The Five Corners. Let's make that the next Four Corners.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because if you park there, you can do almost anything from that point, any activity you like.
Oh, sure.
And it's a perfect spot.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then wintertime, there's a bunch of skiing out there. The snowmobile trail runs right through there, so it's really kind of a good metaphor for what we do at Reklis. It's a little bit of everything.
And I'm giving it away, but there's some really nice swimming holes right down there under the Route 3 bridge. So.
A little tip, a little Reklis tip. So I also read that Bethlehem has a really interesting feature. It's so high elevation-wise that there's less allergen. So that's what historically brought people here to this town.
Yeah.
In the Whites. It's very interesting. People with allergies would come here just to get relief during the highest season.
Yeah,
Super cool.
That's our Hasidic Jewish community that had traditionally started coming up here 100+ years ago, because they thought that was true. It has been debunked.
Oh, really?
It has been debunked.
Fact checking going on live.
But it still happens though. They still come up regardless. They like it here.
Oh, that's funny. Well, I guess you can't trust Wikipedia then, huh?
I mean, the pollen doesn't magically disappear in Bethlehem.
I wish it did.
I've always heard that it was an allergen thing people would come up for, get away from, it's like a prescription to get to, the higher elevation. But I never heard the pollen being less at higher elevation theory.
It's out there. It's embedded in the web.
Oh,
sure.
I've heard it, but lately I think people are coming here because they've heard there's really good beer.
Oh, hell yeah. Absolutely. No question. Mrs. Stomp is giving a hell yeah.
Now, Ian, I'm an HR guy, so I'm always curious. So obviously, COVID was a challenge for you, and now you're back to normal based on this crowd here.
Yeah.
Hiring and sort of if you wanted to get into the brewing industry, do you typically hire people that have past experience in brewing, or do you so you're sort of train your own talent perspective?
Oh yeah. So not just brewing, and I'll get into that in a second, but thank you for touching on that, because we've got, I don't know if you've noticed, the best team in the universe working at Reklis Brewing right now. And I want to thank everybody who does it, because without them we wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah.
When it comes to brewing, Stephen was what do you say, a blank slate, and Kyle's over there somewhere.
Well.
You're a professional beer drinker?
Yeah, I could drink it, but making it was a different story. Yeah.
So Kyle and Stephen now brew beer more than I do here. And honestly, in the last couple of years, they're the ones that come up with a lot of these great recipes that we have.
Yeah.
And I cannot believe how great a job they've done at making the beer what it is today. It's incredible.
Oh, top notch.
Well, we wouldn't be anywhere without a good teacher. And
There you go.
Ian's a really great guy to work for.
And we have fun.
Yeah, and we have a lot of fun. Yeah, like making mistakes at work is one of those things where, you know, like, I don't know, I'd do something dumb like spill a bunch of beer or whatever, and Ian would just walk up behind me, give me a big, you know, hand slap right on the shoulder, and said, "I've done that before."
I'm going to write you up.
No way.
Well, here's the thing. We know we all make mistakes.
Yeah.
And there's some fun mistakes that we make. And I'll just use one example. Recently, obviously, there's a war going on between Ukraine and Soviet Union, or Russia right now. And we made a beer that was going around the brewing community called Resist. And it was meant to raise awareness and some money for the Ukrainian people. And the beer was meant to be a beet stout. And, you know, that's a thing over there. They grow a lot of beets, and the idea was to make it a cool combination of the two. And so Stephen, we brewed the beer, and a few days later is when you add the beets to the fermenter. And Stephen added the beets to the wrong beer.
Oh.
And this was how many pounds of beets?
70 pounds.
70
of
pounds
beets.
of beets. So we ended up with an absolutely beautiful beet IPA.
If you've ever opened a single can of beets, you know just how much mess. Oh, I will die with this shame.
Now, with that said, this beer went over really well.
Really?
People loved the beer. And then we took the stout that it was meant to be for, and we made this really nice barrel-aged salted caramel stout.
Yeah, about half of it went into barrels, and we just released it
Yeah.
a week or two ago.
Yeah, so it was for good.
Yeah.
Everything came out.
It was a happy accident, but
Yeah.
definitely an accident. Holy moly.
I'll take your word for it. I have a thing about purple and pink food.
It was a striking
live
color.
with this shame.
Yeah.
But we have so much fun here. You know, I like to tell people we're not making widgets here. We're making beer. And what more fun can you have than when you make beer? You have to taste it all day long. It's horrible.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you sponsoring us. Who came to you and was like, "Hey, I know about this podcast. Like, you should sponsor it." And were you like, "I don't know about that"?
No, it was Steven originally, and I remember going, "Yeah, whatever. That sounds good." I didn't know anything about you guys at the time. Since then, I do, obviously.
Yeah.
But who knew what it could become? And we rarely say no to things like that, especially if one of our employees comes to us with it. And this is what happens. And Steven's been such a, you know, he just combines everything that Reklis kind of stands for with the outdoor community, the brewing aspect, and he's on the search and rescue team. So it's really great.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, we appreciate you giving us a shot and hosting us on this great event and welcoming everybody here. So.
Well, thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, we went from a dumb podcast to actually like somewhat legitimate because of you guys.
I love it.
You guys got a great turnout. This is a lot of fun.
I thought it worked the other way.
It's fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Well, hey, listen, we were going to have another guest from Flags in the 48, but I think some unforeseen circumstances may have happened over the last week, and they're super busy. But everybody knows this is September 11th. We'll keep it brief. This organization, you can find them on Facebook, Flags in the 48. They have this event that happens generally on the 11th, but sometimes on the Saturday before and this and that. But they send people up with flags to fly the flag on all 48 peaks. And if you go to the site now, it looks like most of the peaks have been hit. I'm seeing like Pierce and Lafayette and, you know, you name it. So if you want to check it out, Flags in the 48, and when we get news on if they've covered all 48, we will let you know.
There's actually a woman on Blueberry today putting a flag up there.
Oh, really? On Blueberry?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I guess it's not exclusive to the 48, but
Yeah.
I mean, there were folks. Andy, I believe, was up on the Old Man this afternoon flying a flag, which is super cool. So, yeah.
Awesome. All right. So why don't we move on to local search and rescue news, and then at the same time, if anybody has any questions, if anybody's in the audience and they want to come up, Martin had signed and donated 3 books for his Secrets of Aging Well, Get Outside. So if you want a book, the first 3 people that are brave enough to come up and ask us questions can get the book. But we'll do the search and rescue now, and then the Q&A at the next part. So, Stephen, I think I don't know how far out that microphone goes, but if you could sort of face it out this way, or Stomp will do it. And Nobby, get your dog out of here. What is he doing? Yeah, I'll start with the search and rescue, and Ian and Stephen, if you guys want to comment, sure, feel free here. So, first story is a local news story that missing 11-year-old boy in Antrim, New Hampshire. I don't know where that is.
Yeah, I'm not familiar.
Yeah, I don't know. That's probably not even a real place. So September 2nd, around 1:50, New Hampshire Fish and Game Dispatch received a call from the Audubon Society. They were reporting that they received a call from a party reporting that his 11-year-old son had been lost hiking Bald Mountain.
Oh, there's like 500
million
Bald
of them.
Mountains.
They're everywhere. So there wasn't a lot of info, but apparently Antrim Police Department, Hancock Police Department, Hillsborough Sheriff, they activated the New England Canine Division, and around 6:30 or so, the missing boy's mother had informed officers that not only was the boy missing, but the father had become lost while looking for his son. So that's always a risk. You know, in the fog of these search and rescues, I would assume, you know, if I'm a parent, I'm going to just do whatever I need to find my kid. I don't really care what Fish and Game or anybody else is doing. So I guess Upper Valley Wilderness Response Team, who had arrived at the command center around 7 o'clock. So this was like 4 or 5 hours. The mother must have been going crazy. So they arrived at the command, and they were briefed on the missing boy's appearance. And then I guess they realized that somebody had seen the kid when they had driven by him. So the boy was walking down Willard Pond Road with an adult male, which turned out to be the father. Ended up finding him. So the two of them were able to walk out onto Route 123 in Hancock and make their way back to the parking lot. So kudos to the dad for finding the kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, way to go, Dad.
He was probably so afraid of what his wife was going to do to him that he was like, I'm going to cover like every square mile of this place
really quick.
You said this call came in from the Audubon?
Yeah, I don't know how that worked.
So I wonder if it was like a birding event. And
could be.
Interesting.
Oh, okay.
Antrim is north of Peterborough. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So the fear of a father from the wrath, like obviously you're freaking out over your kid, but I would be more afraid of my wife, like being like, I can't believe you lost my kid.
I've had moments like that where the kids just disappear. Like we would go to Cranes Beach and this and that, and go to Harbor and Gloucester and this and that, and one of them would disappear. It's the most terrifying moment ever. Have you ever experienced that?
Yeah, we had two incidents. I had one with my youngest daughter, Megan, and she got lost at Santa's Village. So she was like in the little water park, and like we were like, I was like partying in the water park, and like I couldn't care less what she's up to. So she disappeared. We found her surrounded by like 7 adults. Everyone's like, "Oh, are you okay?" And she's like, she's screaming. We found her. That was Kristen's fault, not mine. And then we also lost my niece at the Freiburg Fair, and she was gone for like 30 minutes or so. So we were freaking out on that one.
Yeah, you were thinking what? The clown.
Some nice grandmother found her and was holding her hand, and she didn't seem to be fazed by it, but it's scary.
Oh yeah.
Pennywise
the clown.
Oh my God.
My kid. All right, so the next one here is, and again, if you have questions, start queuing up over here. We'll get the microphone to you. Next one here, New Hampshire Fish and Game were notified of an injured hiker on the Webster Cliff Trail just north of Mount Jackson at 1:15 on Saturday, September 3rd. The hiker was a 42-year-old female from Delaware. A lot of like out-of-state hikers. I'm not judging, but I'm just saying. She was hiking south on the trail when she slipped on a granite slab. Matter of fact, me and 19 over here were just on that trail there. So I'm guessing maybe it was like the slabby section right below Jackson as you approach. but she was unable to bear weight on the injured leg and called 911. So Pemi Valley Search and Rescue, Androscoggin Search and Rescue, and Lakes Region, so as well as the Appalachian Mountain Club, they all came out along with a conservation officer and had like a 3.5 mile carryout.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
there.
pretty much. The first mile was basically uphill too. So gravity is a beast when it comes to rescues, man. I'm telling you, there's nothing worse. Ugh.
Yeah, the thing I don't know about this one is they chose to take out to Mizpah cutoff instead of going down Jackson. I guess it's probably a pick 'em one way or the other.
Depends where you are, but those slabs up there when they get wet, wicked bad.
Sure.
Yes. Yeah, and like you forget about that, but there's like this 100-foot climb to get up the backside of Jackson that matter of fact, we were just up there, and it is slippery.
Wow, yeah.
So anyway, but all's well that ends well there. So they took her to the orthopedic surgeon, and she had been hiking with family members and was sufficiently supplied and prepared for a day hike. So good for her.
As far as which way to go, obviously when we're out there as volunteers, we have a voice in it, and if we ever feel something's not safe, then we can speak up. But ultimately, Fish and Game decides which way we go. So if the CO says go that way, even if it's uphill, we're going that way.
Yeah, I would think that it's probably like an easier carry. It's sort of a flatter approach to get over to Mizpah, and then like a much more gradual hike down
Easier
Crawford,
hike out.
and it's probably like an extra maybe mile or so, but it's probably easier. So, next one here is hikers in need of assistance. There's this thing called sunset that happens sometimes.
Really?
It gets dark out. So
goodness.
Friday afternoon, September 2nd, shortly before 8 p.m., 23-year-old hiker, a 23-year-old female and a 20-year-old male from Maine were overcome by darkness. Imagine how that happened.
It happened, didn't it?
Yeah.
It wasn't in the forecast, I guess.
Yeah. It overcome by darkness. So again, 2 headlamps, you're prepared. 1 headlamp is none. So make sure you got the batteries there. But they were on the Mineral Site Loop in Albany, which I think is like kind of near the Moat Mountain trailhead. I don't know exactly where, but it's over on the North Conway side. So they're about a mile from the trailhead, a little more than 100 yards of trail. And Stomp, this is where the guy, so it's 2 young people, the guy should have just said, look, let's just hang out and we'll look for meteors, because this is where Stomp says you can find meteors.
Yeah, there you go.
So anyway, so they were walked out, and there's a reminder that says get your hike safe card. So, yeah.
I heard the other day you can actually also catch meteors pretty well from the roof of the Zealand hut.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Actual or imaginary meteors? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
People are aware of that one. The recent problem. Somebody was on drugs, doing something.
The bad acid trip on
Yeah,
Zealand.
I guess so.
The 1 week you skipped a show.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
The other funny thing about that, and I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard this was a 3rd date that he was on with this woman, and he was trying
Really?
to impress her.
Really?
I don't know if that worked out.
Well, I wonder if he got asked if he got a 4th date.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
It's impressive in some sense.
Yeah. So the next one here is an unfortunate situation that happened on I think last Sunday around 3 p.m. Fish and Game officers were notified of a hiker suffering from an unknown medical condition. Bunnell Notch Trail in Kilkenny. So this is the approach trail, I think, to get up to Cabot. 39-year-old female unfortunately had a medical condition that ended in her death, unfortunately. So there was a number of people that came upon her to try to do CPR, and unfortunately by the time teams were able to get to her, they were unsuccessful in reviving her. So this is somebody, I think that the name has come out, but this is somebody that I was familiar with, very involved in the hiking community, more so in the Adirondacks than in New Hampshire, but she was hiking in the New Hampshire area. So this is somebody that gave back a lot to the community, and it's really a sad situation. So we, it's been like, I feel like a lot of people have been talking about like a fair number of these medical situations that happened this year. All I can say is that I think there's typically on average you've got 6 to 8 of these situations where people do pass away on trail. I don't know if this year is any different than other years. So
We have one more.
One more. We have Rek Lis Hikers. So these are Rek Lis Hikers, not in the from the brewery perspective, but these are Rek Lis Hikers from the actual meaning of the word, which is these two gentlemen were hiking on and around the Eaglet and the Watcher area in that area. My understanding is I think that what these two guys did is they were not hikers. They parked in Cannon, went up Greenleaf, somehow bushwhacked up near the Watcher in that area there. Not prepared for hiking. They ended up I think they somehow ended up below the Eaglet, but to the north of the Eaglet, and they were stuck on a cliff. And this happened in July, and it was serious enough where Fish and Game charged these two. They didn't get fined that bad. I think it was like a couple $100, but they were mad enough about the behavior of these two hikers that they charged them, which is a pretty rare occurrence.
That's a pretty nasty section of trail too. It's not a known trail very well. I think rock climbers use it, but there's a lot of scree up there, and it gets really bad, like very difficult walking. So if they weren't prepared, I can see where it could have led to problems pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know how they went. Like, I know that there's the climber trail to get up to the Watcher, which is pretty obvious once you get on it, but I don't know how you would go in before that and at least not sort of point even if you went in before the climber trail, I would think you would point your way to the Eaglet in order to sort of get back on that scree field that's climbable.
Yeah,
but I don't know anything about that left area there.
No.
Well, I think they were out there bushwhacking. I got back up a little bit, but on Saturday we had basically a statewide volunteer search and rescue training, and one of the talks that I listened to was another volunteer team, New England Canine. They have a drone division, and they were activated to help try to find these kids who were up walking around on these cliffs and were lost. And she showed drone footage of this kid who was out on these cliffs. No idea how he got there. It was really scary stuff, and it's very interesting. A whole different topic, but what they're doing with drones for search and rescue is really
amazing.
interesting.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's scary. So anyway, they got charged, which is a rarity. But
all right, guys.
So anyway, that's search and rescue news.
Search and rescue news is over.
Fun.
So we're gonna backtrack. We have two members of the Flags on the 48 committee. So if we can hand over the mics, that'd be fantastic.
Thank you, guys.
Ian, thank you so
Steve,
much.
Thank
Steve.
you so much.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thank you very much. This is fun.
Awesome.
Should do this more.
All right, you guys tired? Tired. All right, we're just setting up the Flags on the 48, guys. All right. So who are you?
I'm Jim Roy.
I'm Chris Oberg.
Oh, okay.
All right, so we got Jim and Chris here. So you guys are in charge of Flags on the 48?
You could say that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you could say that. This is kind of like a pretty wide open community. We kind of count on everybody to sort of self-manage, but we do sort of the cheerleading and this all became about because of the internet, right? So there were a lot of people jumping on forums and things like that, and the event I think really grew out of that.
So mostly you have to make sure that like all the mountains are covered, that the people who signed up, do you like follow up with the people that sign up and they're the captains just to make sure that, hey, you're going to Owl's Head, right?
Yes.
You know what you're into.
Yes,
we do.
For certain summits, we ask them to not actually fly at the summit, like for Mount Washington.
Yeah.
Don't fly at the tourist sign. Fly it somewhere else. Move them a little ways off the summit.
Okay.
And for other summits like East Osceola today, we were looking at the summit from Liberty and we couldn't see it, but they were flying their main flag from the outlook. So it was a lot.
And can you talk about the sort of the origin of Flags on the 48? Obviously, like this is so for people that aren't familiar, this is a memorial for September 11th, 2001. This is the 20th anniversary of the event in the White Mountains. So you're obviously like a year behind the actual event. But can you talk about the origin of Flags on the 48?
Sure. Actually, right after 9/11, the Saturday after 9/11, 6 hikers took an American flag up to Mount Liberty. And they did that because they wanted to show, some solidarity, some patriotism, and they flew the flag. And I don't know if you know how long they did, but
I think they flew it for like 10 to 2, something like that. Because they were very strong hikers.
Yeah.
Very, very strong hikers.
Yeah. And then, as I'd mentioned earlier, everybody kind of got on board with it because word went out over the internet that these guys went up there and flew a flag, and the hiking community kind of grabbed right onto it and said, you know what, that's a really amazing thing. And somebody, nobody knows who, said we should do this every year. And every year since then, the event has grown. And we were talking earlier tonight that we guess, because we can't know for sure, but we guess we had well over 600 people participating this year.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Dispersed
it's an incredible group.
And now
48 peaks.
I've hiked on flags on the 48, and I've gone up there, but I haven't been part of an actual team. If you're part of a team, do you all meet in one single location and then go from there, or does everybody just leave to hike their own mountain?
I think everybody does it a little bit differently. There are some groups that sign up that say, okay, our slower group is going to leave at like 7 o'clock, and then our quicker group is going to leave at 8 o'clock. And then with the basis of mind of trying to get to the summit all at the same time. Because if everybody leaves at 7 o'clock with all the different speeds, some people are going to just go all the way to the summit, and it's discouraging. So you would rather have everybody be able to summit at the same time, so we stagger the start times. Okay. Some groups, they just want to all hike together, and that's okay. You know, they're able to do whatever they want, really.
And we do have one, we kind of try and get one, what we call a peak coordinator. So that's the person who, at the end of the day, is responsible for making sure there's a flag on their summit from noon to 2. And we also ask them to communicate with the other people who signed up for that peak so that everybody kind of knows, oh, well, we're meeting in this parking lot, we're taking this trail, you know, and then we work on, you know, they work on the timing amongst themselves about, okay, well, we're slower, so we're going to start earlier, we're quicker, so we're going to start later. And the idea is just, like I said earlier, everybody kind of self-manages, and the idea is just to make sure that there's a flag at the summit and that it's there from noon to 2. And it's important also to note, I think, that we also encourage not just American flags, but any flag. The only one that we ask that we definitely have is the American flag. But we've had people flying all kinds of different things, prayer flags, and
Scout flags.
Yep, Scouts flags. And I had a guy who came up from Brazil, and he flew a Brazilian flag because there were people from Brazil in the Twin Towers. And you know, we've met people who have had family members who passed in the Twin Towers, and it's been it's kind of an amazing thing. It's really, you know, we talk about the logistics, but really it's all about the people who are participating. Because you should see the look in people's eyes when the flags go up. It's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're just totally taken aback, you know, and pretty excited.
Yeah, Mrs. Stomp and I, we came up Osceola during the early days of our 48 adventure, and they were setting it up. We had no idea. We knew it was the 11th, of course, but it's so impressive. And at the time, I think somebody was playing bagpipe music, and it was just amazing. Beautiful time.
Yeah, we actually, I'm guessing at this point, well over half the people that participate were people who just happened to be summiting one of the peaks on one of those days and said, "My God, that's an amazing thing you guys are doing. I'm jumping in. I want to do this next year."
Yeah,
and they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think the first time I saw it, I was doing like a loop up King Ravine and then coming down the Castle Trail, and I was going to tag Jefferson, and that's when I was coming along the Gulf Side Trail. And I saw that flag up there, and I was like, "Wow, this is really cool." And I remember the crowds up on Jefferson. It was a great day, but it's definitely a good experience. So if anybody has never done this, it's definitely worth checking it out for next year. And the website is with flagsonthe48.org.
Yep.
So you can sign up. And then when do you guys open up the sign-ups for it?
Usually it will be the first Monday in August.
Right. It's generally about a month beforehand, and the sign up process is worth talking about because it is just insane, right?
It's
like
crazy.
We have we get approximately 20,000 hits on the website in 5 minutes.
Wow.
So it's overwhelming, and you know, we always run into problems with the website not being able to handle it because that's like eBay territory. Like I had posted on the Facebook group, you know, this is the kind of place where you got to have a very robust back end,
like servers,
and
right?
and we're a $0 event, right? Like, it doesn't cost anything for anybody to participate ever, right? We don't collect money, we don't collect anything, so it's really just, you know, we have to do what we can with the resources that we have. But it is kind of fun to watch. We generally get at least 30 peaks covered within the first 20 minutes.
Now that leads me to a question: how are you organized? Are you a nonprofit, or how do you manage risk? Like, you have people signing into your website, but then they, like, I've been on some gnarly flags in the 48 where it's been hail and just like, how does that work?
We are not organized. We tell people that tell people that you're hiking at your own risk, right?
Like, you're hiking at your own risk.
We're not a 503c. We're not, we're nothing. We don't have any formal organization. Okay. We basically just exist on the internet, and we basically tell people, this is you participating. You got to be responsible for yourself, and we've, knock on wood, never had a problem.
Good.
One of the it's a rain or shine event, because the way we've thought it up, the people that were affected most by 9/11 never had a choice of how their day was going to end.
Yeah.
So for us, okay, we got to hike in the rain. Okay, we got to do it.
Yep.
And the response that we get when it's one of those like crazy weather days, it's really, people get what the event is all about. It's about the memorial, and that's what we want to keep everybody focused on. It's really great to see when, okay, you're getting to the summit and there's absolutely no view whatsoever. It's cold, it's raining, and they set up their flags, and usually at that point we have the 12 to 2 window, but we
say be smart, right? Just
be smart. Use your better judgment. If you want to just fly it for like a half hour, that's fine. Turn around, come back. No, we don't want anyone getting hurt during this. But.
Right. And there are times when the wind is 50 miles an hour and gusting to 60, 70, tears the flag apart. So we were talking about Adams a few years ago. I did it with one of my groups, and we literally didn't even set up a flagpole. We just had one section. We attached the flag, and then we moved to the leeward side of the peak because the wind was so rapid. It was so violent that we just literally couldn't fly the flag. It was tearing itself apart.
You didn't want to turn yourself into a kite.
I did not want to turn myself into a kite. That would have been unpleasant. But we literally tell everybody, use your best judgment. If you have to, basically have one of those little flags on a stick and get to the summit and wave it,
there you go.
You did it.
There you go. You did it.
You flew a flag. You participated.
It counts.
It works, but last thing.
These folks are so determined. I remember going to East Osceola, and there's no view up there.
Right.
50-foot trees. They piled PVC pipes straight up to get that flag above the trees. It was so impressive.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Part of the fun is, we were talking about this also, part of the fun is seeing all the creative ways that people get their flags up and the flagpoles they use and how they secure them. And
we definitely have a few engineers in our group.
We all steal ideas from each other.
Yeah, definitely.
Can
There's
I
some really
add
clever designs.
I'd like to add a 49th peak so that somebody can come hook up my Starlink satellite dish up.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you got it. Sure.
That'd be great. But
Contact us next year.
Yeah, exactly. But this is great. And I feel like as bad of a situation, as bad of an event that 9/11 was, I think I look back at that, and it was a period where after 9/11 happened, like I feel like as a country we were the most unified that I've ever felt. And that was a good feeling, but it didn't last long. And I feel like more and more as I get older, there's less of that feeling. And I feel like events like this can recapture that. And I think the good thing about the hiking community is it doesn't always matter what your background is, what your point of view is on things. Like, when you hike with somebody, you really don't dive into those things. It's more about hiking. And I feel like, at least for a day, this sort of captures the fact that, it is important to have some level of unity and some level of caring about the country, regardless of what perspective you come from. So I thank you and all the participants for bringing that for at least one day. And I hope that feeling can be rekindled in a little more consistency than we are right now.
Yeah, and one of the best things about it is that nobody ever talks politics. This is not
a rule, basically.
Yeah, There's no politics
at
involved. This
all.
is all just, everybody's going up there and connecting and participating. And it's also important to note that sort of along the lines of what you were talking about, we actually reserve 3 peaks that are accessible so that people who can't hike can still participate. So Washington, Wildcat D, and Cannon all have a way to get up without hiking. So we save those and we put the word out, if you want to participate, but you're physically unable, whether through age or disability or what have you, you can still participate. You can still get to a summit of a 4,000 footer and fly a flag, so that's one of the things I'm most proud of, is that we're trying desperately not to exclude anyone.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And you guys don't even smell that bad either. It's not bad.
Do you guys have an update? Is it too early? Did you capture all 48?
From Liberty, we could see 16 other flags. With I brought a telescope, so
that's awesome.
So epic.
That was, we could see.
I got a great picture of him with his telescope.
Moosilauke.
Aye, aye, Captain.
North and South Kinsman, Cannon, Lincoln, Lafayette, Garfield, Galehead, North Twin, South Twin,
West Bond.
The 3 bonds we could get them.
Awesome.
We could see Kerrigan. We could see East
so great.
Osceola, and we could see Flume.
So it was cloudy, but like a high ceiling.
It
so
was
you
a
could
very
see
high
them.
ceiling.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And did the Black Hawk do the flyover?
I think they were busy today.
They were busy. Yeah, okay.
We didn't see. We did see a Cessna or something that came by. So there was one little plane that came and flew by.
Yeah.
It wasn't
And
an
he was-
A-10, but we'll take what we can get.
He was tipping his wings as he was coming by all the peaks, which was cool.
That's
So,
cool.
That might have been Jack Daly or something.
Could be.
Civil
could
Air
be.
Patrol.
Could be. Well, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you,
And
guys. I'm glad you made it.
Thanks
I
for
gotta get
having
on
us.
that next year, Stomp. We got to do that.
Oh, hell yeah. Absolutely. I miss doing that.
All right. So, I got to go to the bathroom, so we got to do
All
Q&A
right, hey,
soon.
yeah,
Jeez,
well-
I'm like that.
Well, let's do Q&A.
Yeah,
Thank you
yeah.
guys very
Thanks,
much.
guys.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Is there any taker for the Q&A? All right, we have one. Let's get the mic set.
your
You can
book.
actually take a seat and get comfy.
Yeah. Tell us your name.
Hi, I'm Jeff from Boston, longtime fan. My first episode was episode 8 on White Mountain Waterfalls when it first came out.
Oh,
so I've
nice.
been listening from,
So you skipped all the bad ones and went right to the good ones.
well, episode 8, so I've been listening since then, since 2021. Yeah. And my question is, how has doing the podcast, if at all, changed your experience or approach when you're hiking? Because you're talking about all this stuff, and as you're hiking, do you think about, oh, I'm going to do this so I have a story to tell on the podcast? Or you're thinking about all the things that you've talked about as you're going. Has it really changed your experience on the mountains?
Oh, Mike's giving me the look. This is a
answer
deep
first.
question. I mean, honestly, I hike to tune things out, so I don't typically think about the podcast, to be honest with you. I may think about other issues and things going on in my life, but the podcast seems to be I don't know. Sometimes it seems like it's 24/7. We're sending texts to each other and this and that, but yeah, on the trail, I'm either out trying to get some romance with my wife or just to get that sunset. I'm not thinking about much else, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think I definitely I'm much more purposeful about I want to hike in order to have some content for the show. But I'd say for me, I honestly and I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I really had an elitist attitude, and I was kind of an ass towards hiking in general.
About time you admit it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely sort of had this sort of I'm trail running. I want to do speed or whatnot. And I think through not so much the podcast, but just meeting more and more people over time, I've really changed my perspective completely. And I'm really more about I don't care whether you're the fastest runner in the world or the slowest trail hiker or whatever. I just feel like I've gotten a lot more sort of open-minded about hiking and wanting to make sure that everybody experiences hiking regardless of what their physical skills are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But
I've
does that
grown
feed
up a
into the
little bit, I
show?
guess.
For me, no, it doesn't.
Yeah, for me it does from the guest perspective. I want to, Larson is great and Steve Mason is great, but I also am always pushing to say, we need to get people that are just regular people that everybody can relate to, because not
absolutely.
everybody's doing the 7-minute trail miles or whatever.
That's awesome. Thank you for all that you do. Thanks for hosting. It's really made my hikes in the White Mountains. I actually listened to it on the drive up from Boston to the podcast. It's now 2 hours. It's perfect
Oh,
for the
that's
length
great.
of the
Yeah.
drive.
So tell us about what you're up to. What are you doing?
So I'm a 50 state high pointer. So
Okay.
I'm trying to go to all the 50 state high pointers. But in COVID, I felt like I don't want to bring COVID to these mountain communities,
Yeah.
particularly out west. So I've been doing the 48. So I'm at 37.
Wow,
So trying
good for
to
you.
hike some more of it. But listening to podcasts on hikes and on the drive has been amazing.
So is that your weekend? Do you just hit the car 4 a.m. Saturday and you're gone and you're hitting the peaks?
Yeah, sometimes I splurge on like a hostel or a motel room on
Yeah.
Friday night so I can, drive up Friday after work. Sleep and wake up early.
Oh, that's great.
So tell me about Florida and Rhode Island.
So the best one is Delaware, which is the corner of a parking lot.
Oh, really?
But then there are some western ones that are like really sort of high. Like the highest of the 48 is Whitney. So I did Whitney in a day.
Oh, great.
So that's like 26 miles, 6,000 elevation gain. Beautiful hike. And then some of the ones out east are like really low. You can drive to them.
Yeah, I think Florida, I've heard, is it like a trash? It's like a capped out trash dump or something?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, but it takes you to like interesting parts of the country.
Oh, yeah.
That I try to like go to the hike and experience that area as well.
Oh,
so my
wow.
favorite is Guadalupe in Texas. It's like a beautiful part of the country, beautiful hike, 8,500 or so.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Well, that's interesting.
Well, enjoy that book.
Yeah, thanks. I'm excited.
Are there any other takers out there? Any other deep, dark questions you want to throw at us? Or are we going to do this outro? Oh, Nobby, you got a question for us? Oh, God, the Nobby.
Yeah, and then 19's going to come up for a minute.
Hey. All right. Hey, is there any plans for a video? Like YouTube?
No.
No.
Nobody cares what we look like.
No. I think that'd be a great idea.
We'll see.
I don't know. I mean, honestly, I think for me, I love the fact that the listenership are generally hikers and they've been to these places that we're talking about. And I love the fact that people have to use their imagination as opposed to watching a video of these two frumpy old dudes up here. I don't know. I mean, maybe for an event like this, we'll post this probably, but in general, nah, I don't think so. But maybe some educational snippets or something. I mean, I love like Mike's sequence up Huntington. I mean, that was great. But in terms of the show itself, I don't think we're heading that direction.
Very good, Nobby.
Are you bummed out?
All right, Caroline, come on up here. I'm going to get my daughter up here for a minute. Right here is good. Yeah, just get on. Make sure you're on the mic. Is it on?
Hey. Oh, yeah.
All right. So this is my daughter, Caroline. So I have 3 daughters. She's the only one that has stuck it out and continues to hike with me. So you're at like, what, 24 of the 4,000 footers? And probably,
I think 22 right now.
Yeah. And you've done a bunch of the 52 with a view. So is there any questions you want to ask us?
Well, I feel like I pretty much know everything at this point.
Yeah.
If you want to go into a little bit about your Hilaria Baldwin conspiracy theories.
No, we don't want to get into that. We don't want to get into that. But I guess my question to you is like, why did you stick with hiking versus your sisters who were like, forget it, I don't want to do hiking with Dad?
We talked a little bit about this on the car ride up here. We mentioned that I'm a pretty agreeable person. If someone asked me to do something, I'm probably going to say yes. So I think that after as many years of just, Caroline, do you want to go hiking? Me saying yes kind of became my thing.
Yeah.
And I definitely enjoy it. I enjoy being outside, enjoy being up in the mountains. So I'm glad I've stuck with it.
Now, you recently have so I feel like I did a bad job with Caroline and hiking to start with because I would always navigate for her. And then now she's old enough where she wants to go out hiking on her own. So she's done some solo hikes. So can you talk about like how you've transitioned from relying on me to navigate to doing your own navigation?
Gaia, for sure. That's my main navigation tool. But I think being out going solo has been a good experience. I have fond memories of Tecumseh, which was my first solo hike last fall. Being out in the foliage and being by yourself, it can definitely be a little bit of a challenge because there's not as many people to like bounce things off of. It's hard to just like be by yourself, keeping your thoughts in your head instead of having someone to bounce them off of. But yeah, I think that navigation in general. It's been something that I've just been learning, definitely watching you do it. Following blazes has been an important skill that you've taught me, I think.
Awesome. And then do you, in your mind, do you have any like plans to do any like crazy like long trails, Appalachian Trail or anything like that in the future?
I've been thinking about maybe doing a section hike of somewhere in like Virginia, depending on what it's like after I graduate college. I was thinking about it last year, but that didn't end up happening. But I would love to start hiking out in Worcester too. So see what happens with that.
Build up your resume. Maybe we'll have you on the show.
For sure, for sure.
Well, I'm proud of you. I think that I'm looking forward to you finishing the 4,000 footers, and I'm your wingman whenever you want to get out there and hike.
Thank you.
So, did you hear that, Devin? All right. Anything else, Stomp?
Yeah, Lynn, do you want to come up for a second? We have a member of the 48 Peaks Alzheimer's, so we're just going to finish up with this. And we try to support charities when we can, and athletes and whatever else, and we'll see where we go from there. But Lynn is part of the 48 Peaks Alzheimer's crew, and it's a charity. So why don't you just give us a little update on what you guys are up to and what you're all about.
All right, thanks. My name's Lynn, and I work with the volunteer with the Alzheimer's Association for the Longest Day. Each year we put on an event called 48 Peaks for the Longest Day. And similar to Flags on the 48, there are teams of 10 on each of the 48 peaks, 4,000-foot peaks. And so each year we look for hikers, we look for fundraising, donations, support, community support. So this year's event raised over $238,000.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep. I have to give a shout out to the Hiking Buddies, New Hampshire 48, because I think about 70% of that money came from folks that originated from Hiking Buddies, New Hampshire 48. So if anybody's here, thank you.
Awesome. What's the goal for next year? Now you have to like live up to that next year, right?
Goal for next year, 500,000.
All right.
Double it.
Awesome.
Yep.
Incredible. And then what about you? What's going on with your knee there? Did you hike today? Is that?
Yeah, I did Flags on the 48.
Oh, you did. What peak did you go to?
Moosilauke. I did.
Moosilauke. Oh, that's a good one. How was the crowds?
There was a lot of people on the summit. There were probably 50 to 60 people on the summit, I would say.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Coming down, we ran into Pemisar. Actually, they were on their way up for something about a lower leg injury, maybe.
Really?
We ran into one of the folks. We came down the Snapper Trail. They were going up Gorge Brook. So hopefully they're okay. That was all right. But yeah.
Now, have you done all the 4,000 footers?
I have not. Moosilauke was number 9 for me.
Oh, so you're relatively new.
Yeah, relatively. My first foray was a presidential traverse, so I started the easy way.
Right in the deep end.
Yeah.
And you're tapped in with the veterans on the 48, correct?
I don't hike with them yet, but
okay.
I was actually gifted this beautiful shirt by one of the veterans, and so eventually I would like to get on a hike with them. I know that they supported Flags on the 48 very much as well this year.
Yeah, great crew.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, good for you. Moosilauke must have been an awesome view today.
We actually got really great views. We were concerned that, but again, the cloud ceiling was pretty high, so we got excellent views. And at some point, it did cool down a little. The clouds came moving in, and that was about the time we headed out. So
great.
It was great. Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Mike, let's take a selfie, a reverse selfie with the whole crew here.
Sure. I'll do that. Very cool. Very cool. Right on. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. I think this concludes the show. I appreciate you sticking with us, and hopefully this wasn't too boring. So, good job, Stomp.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to learn more about the topics covered in today's show, please check out the show notes and safety information at SLASRpodcast.com. That's SLASR podcast.com. You can also follow the show on Facebook and Instagram. We hope you'll join us next week for another great show. Until then, on behalf of Mike and Stomp, get out there and crush some mega peaks.
Now covered in scratches, blisters, and bug bites, his staff wanted to complete his most challenging day hike ever.
Fish and Game officers say the hiker from Florida activated an emergency beacon yesterday morning. He was hiking along the Appalachian Trail when the weather started to get worse. Officials say the snow was piled up to 3 feet in some spots, and there was a wind chill of -1 degree.
And there's 3 words to describe this race. Do we all know what they are?
Lieutenant James Nealon, New Hampshire Fish and Game. Lieutenant, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
What are some of the most common mistakes you see people make when they're heading out on the trails to hike here in New Hampshire?
It seems to me the most common is being unprepared. And I think if they just simply visited hikesafe.com and got a list of the 10 essential items and had those in their packs, they probably would have no need to ever call us at all.